Put this man to work.
He has his parachute on.
Vote for me in 2020.
Watch it, I got my essential oils with me. Who was there last night with me? Raise your hands. You can't make that up, can you? Some good stuff.
Yeah, I heard that you guys had some very interesting things taking place last night.
It's the norm, you know. If you're at my house, you're going to see these things running around.
Now, it took a long time to get you to come forward. And it's very interesting for me because everybody kind of heard your story. There's a lot of love in this room right now. Oh, yeah.
I gave everyone the high five except, you know, my two colleagues here.
Now, we're unfolding a cosmic narrative here. And you, like Corey, have had in-person contact with extraterrestrials. Now, we kind of overlooked this when we were doing Cosmic Disclosure, but I've also had contact the whole time. It's just that for me, it was always telepathic. But the one thing that I can tell you guys is that every time that I would receive the contacts where I wouldn't know what the heck I was saying, the voices just come, I'm just letting myself talk, but I don't listen to it. And you have to be very deep in meditation so that you're forgetting each word as it comes out. Because it's so slow, and your mind is going so fast that the time between words is so long, you can't even tell what the sentence is. And both of you guys have reported contact with ETs and telepathic stuff. And one of the things that would always happen to me is I get this incredible bliss sensation. In fact, I had to invoke the bliss sensation first, and then be in this really, really deep trance before the words would come in, where later on I transcribe them and they would predict the future just like somebody's reading pages out of a book.
You have to have that frequency before you make contact. That's why you did that. You know, then you're at that level of no ego and you're ready to make contact like we did last night. You have to escape from this realm here and drop all your shields down and say, I'm just the same as you, and you, and we're ready to make contact. And that's what happened. That's what you're explaining right now, is getting on that frequency level to accept that.
And Corey, you reported that these beings, like when Tyrier was first talking to you, that you would have a very powerful bliss state. Could you describe that for us just with a little more verbal decoration?
Yeah.
Since sometimes he literally answers with one word.
Yep. Yep.
Yep, nope, and maybe.
Okay. So the question was, what's it like?
Can you feel your underpants?
Yes.
Okay, let's start with that.
Okay. So some of these beings, we learned very quickly during interrogations, a lot of these beings, before they communicate or come in contact with a human being, they manipulate your state of mind. So a very gross-looking ET can project a image of an angel of light coming into the room with you and deceive you and interact with you. Now, so there's that type of them making you feel blissed out. They'll make you feel blissed out to make you feel all religious, kind of a religious feeling. Now, the higher density beings, it is just their consciousness vibration affecting you. Your vibration it starts vibrating a little faster, you know, and you feel the effects of that.
And so just could you describe the emotional feelings? Like just give us some adjectives and some descriptive language about what does it actually feel like?
The words don't work, you know, for it. When I've been in positions to where Tyrier is communicating through me, I can't even see who I'm communicating with because tears are just coming constant. I mean, my shirt's wet. I mean, it's, and I'm not crying, I'm not feeling, but I have such, I feel like, you know, a cable can handle a certain current before it burns up. It feels like the current's been turned up extremely high.
Now, Emery, one of the most fascinating things for me is when you described being in an alien autopsy room and that you had certain beings come in and assist you in the autopsy. Now, this is like Emery's greatest hits. Some of you guys might have heard this, but I really want this to be out here again. So could you describe for us, first of all, just give us one of the beings, or maybe more than one of the beings that you were talking to in the OR, and how did this communication take place, and what kind of communication was it?
This will take 30 minutes to answer.
Perfect. I'll be right back.
Go for it.
Drop the mic.
He dropped the mic.
Bam.
Yeah.
Just like when you come home from work with your family, you might be in a great mood, or you might not be. But the fact is, because your frequency is at that mood and that emotion, you transmit that frequency. So you could actually turn your whole household into a big cluster real quick if you're really angry and you bring that energy home and we infect each other with it. So the same thing with working with extraterrestrials who are very telepathic and very communicative this way using energies. You have to reset yourself and you have to bring yourself down to an egoless level that you're willing to work with someone today, because the first thing that's going to happen in the first 10 seconds is they're going to know if you're upset. They're going to know pretty much everything about you, and you have to deal with that, which is fine. In my life, I have obviously no more secrets. But the best thing about it was going up, knowing that this colleague of yours, who is extraterrestrial, looks like a human, maybe a little different. Maybe the ears are a little bit different, the eyeset's a little bit different. But for the majority of it, they volunteered to be here, or they were captured to come here, and they volunteered to stay because they were once us, and they have more compassion than all of us put together. But we are them. Remember that. Our DNA is in the majority of the extraterrestrials that I have been involved with. But getting back to the question, I'm sorry, that was just the scientific part now.
Describe for us some of like who you saw, what did they look like exactly, and more of the emotional verbiage of what was it like to communicate with them. Did they talk with their mouths, or how was it going?
Yeah, they can communicate with their mouths or special devices, but for the most part it's telepathy. And telepathy is a language, by the way. You have to have, like I said, with your emotion and everything, when you project something, and I'm upset and I'm walking in the room, not going to work today, and I said, hello. It's more like, hello! Because they read the emotion, not the transmission. Because they're reading the entire system of your how stable you are, and they know your chemical levels and everything. So they know they can smell things that we can't smell, or we can smell them subliminally. But at the same time, you have to have this set mindset when you go in there. So these ETs that I was working with mostly were human-looking. They're very tall whites, I call them. And they are very compassionate and very, very funny. So when we're sitting here working on something, and it's really nice because when they say, oh, we're going to take this and do this, and you need to do this, it's already like within seconds. So it's like fluid movement of what you're doing at the operating room table there. Maybe continue. And that being said, is they can see a little bit into your thought processes before you make the move, which is really interesting. So if I'm about to grab something, they already know that I was going to grab that, and it's like, no, and like you're about to think it, but you're like, no. Like they already called me out. Like they're a couple of like seconds ahead of me, and it was really fun. Except for the part on Friday nights where I'm like going to go home and have fun for the weekend. They know what I'm doing that weekend. They're laughing. Emery, you're taking the girl out to the movies this night. Oh, okay, well. So there is no secrets, nothing. And that's how it's going to be here in the future. There will be no secrets with anyone. Everything that you see me think will be right here on that screen for the universe to see, and people will be held responsible for what's done here on this planet.
So since your presence has a tendency to occupy the space when you arrive,
I'm just a regular guy with a regular dog.
I don't think you were here when I was doing the opening intro, but I was talking about meeting rock stars. And I was talking about, oh, see, this is perfectly normal behavior. This is a serum. He has to ingest a certain serum to not shapeshift.
That's classified. Shame on you.
I knew that backpack had something to do with this. Okay, Corey has lost his mic, so he probably needs a new battery. That's why I always... Oh, okay, he's got it. Okay. We're good. So anyway, I was talking about meeting rock stars and how if you're all, oh my God, wow, it's so amazing, you know, you'll get like 30 seconds tops.
Security.
But if you're totally relaxed, and you don't really care and you're like, hey man, what's going on? Then they'll talk to you for an hour.
Right.
And so I'm trying to give people here, there's a reason why I did all the things that I did. Everybody was like, David spent 20 minutes talking about meeting rock stars.
No, I was listening to you the last hour and a half, yeah.
Okay, good.
Because you wouldn't invite me up on stage.
I wanted to make sure Corey had a chance to talk. Oh. Let's put it that way. I just know how these things go. There's a strategy.
You want to roast, we can roast.
My point in bringing this up was that I think a lot of us here, whether you think you're ready or not, okay, I believe for myself, the reason why I was able to get this telepathic contact with these beings is I might be there for an hour and I am talking robotically like this, and I know that when I transcribe this later on that it's going to be this amazing stuff that predicts the future and has these beautiful messages from extraterrestrials for me, and I'll see these beings in white robes, and I'll, because sometimes I'll report what I'm seeing as I'm hearing the stuff, and they were Nordics for the most part. My point is, if I had had that response like fans do when they go backstage at a rock concert, oh my God, extraterrestrials are talking to me, holy crap, what are they saying? I'm interested. If I got into that state, it's immediately going to break the contact. So the point is, you have to kind of not really, you don't want to see them as anything that special. You want to just be really relaxed, really nonchalant, so that you can stay bored. You can stay disinterested. You just let the thing happen. You let the communication happen. So Emery, given the fact that you've had a lot of this type of telepathic experience, how do you think that what I just said would apply to people here in terms of getting the chance to meet extraterrestrials? What is the set that they have to be ready for?
I think the most important thing first is to really come to reality that we're not alone. And I know most of you here are like that, except for a couple of you agents. I see you. My people are watching you. And what that means is you can't have any fear, because we want to go to another country and learn about them. And just because we have a language barrier, that's okay. Okay, just because we can't talk to dolphins don't mean they're conscious. Right?
Don't mean they're not conscious.
I mean, they're not conscious, right. I'm sorry. Doesn't mean they're not conscious.
You know, everybody would have flamed you on YouTube if I hadn't fixed that one.
Thank you, Dave. Dave, anything I write or anything I do, he, checks everything out, makes sure I don't get hammered out there, because everyone wants to say something bad. Yep. But getting out there, which these two have been through, I'm the newbie. Getting back to this, so no fear is the biggest thing, is just saying, hey, and saying it out loud and actually projecting that, like when we pray, and say, hey, I'm ready to make contact, and I'm not fearful of it, no matter what that is. So please show yourself in the most safe and effective way that can happen for you, for us, and also safe and effective for them, so when they do come, because now, as you know, since the 50s and 60s and 70s, craft just don't come down here now like they were seen all the time, because of these neutrino light detectors and devices we have up there to destroy any type of craft that come in, right? And that is a deterrent, but they are advanced enough to holographically image themselves or project themselves or bilocate themselves, especially interdimensional beings. That's the other thing. There's so many different types of beings. Everyone's like, oh, what's the best one you've seen? Was that the octopus one Dave said, was with the cyclops eye? No. It's like, yeah, of course we phantasmically like those kind of things, but most of the part there are these 5-star beings, 2 arms, 2 heads,
Really? You just let it out.
2 arms, 2 legs, and a head. Some have 2 heads. No pun intended. But what I'm getting at is we have to, well, no, there's conjoint twins. You guys are horrible. I'm a scientist, guys. You know what a conjoint twin is? Okay, they have, sometimes you have no.
Emery Smith, the man with 2 brains.
Oh, guys, this is going on Comedy Central live at night. But that's how we have to prepare ourselves that way. And meditation's really good, and not getting caught up in all the negativity of the world, because it's always there. Okay, let's focus on the positivity. And you know how the positivity comes? It starts with you. You guys have to start thinking this way, because what happens, Dave, when we get a good collective together and we all start thinking the same way? We can change.
It's called a cult, dude.
I was trying to push your morphogenic field book, but okay.
It's not Kool-Aid anymore. We got green tea in the back. People were concerned about food coloring, and they didn't like the sugar, so.
I'm thirsty again. So that's how we do it. So we went out there last night. We blessed the land. We did a 30-minute puja. You guys like that? There's certain areas on the planet that are contaminated with bad karmatic things, like a lot of death happened. And since I didn't know the area very well, we bring someone out, a pujari, and he comes out from the Hindu temple here in Denver, a friend of mine. And then we do this nice, beautiful blessing with all the fruits and coconuts and vegetables, and pass them out, the flowers. And we say, okay, ETs, we actually bless this land. We did all this stuff. We had some amazing contact, but I usually do these things over like 6 or 8 hours in one day, from 6 p.m. to like 3 a.m. We only had 3 hours, and after midnight, it started like getting pretty heated. Olivia started doing her little thing there, and they started floating in. But the thing is, you have to first make that effort to say, you're not going to sit here, oh, when are they coming? Are they coming here? Are they here yet? Why don't you actually talk and consciously put your energy into the universe, show them who you are, say it, either out loud or, make an intention. We had the nice bowl out there. Remember that big 24-inch singing bowl? Did you like that tone? It cleanses everything, gets people on the right tonality, because like Dave said, you have to be of the right tonality to actually communicate. And that sometimes takes time.
Well, and I heard from somebody else that a certain number of people said, F this, I'm out of here. And then after they left, that's when all the cool stuff started to happen.
Well, they always make sure that those bad guys leave, and the good people that stay get to see some nice things. And that's really, honestly true. We've had many expeditions around the world, CE5s, with 30 to 500 people. And when these people throw their temper tantrums because they want to go, wait, oh, that's a real UFO. If you're out there to see Shamu, this ain't SeaWorld, sorry. And that's what people come out there. They have the wrong ego intention, because they're like, well, I'm just here, to see this, see something so I can take a picture of it and sell it to the National Enquirer for $1,200. Trust me, it's happened. That's not the intention you have to have if you want to be elevated in consciousness and communicate with people that are a little bit more elevated than we are consciously. I mean, they're not chopping their heads off. They're not like hating each other, fighting over material things. But they were once us, and they have compassion for us. And guess what? Because of all of you, we're finally going to get there.
All right. Emery Smith. Corey, I know that you've had various very specific coachings from the beings about what are the things that we need to do to be ready for this cosmic evolutionary leap, which includes, of course, direct contact with them. You've had Anshar telling you that they were going to start making in-person contacts with people in the future. So could you give us some of the protocols of what they said would be necessary if the people in this audience, let's say, want to be among the first who are going to get those in-person contacts like what you guys have had already?
Sure. First of all, these positive beings, before they manifest in front of you or show themselves in front of you, they go into a, well, to us, we think of meditation and communicating with our higher selves as this whole process. But fourth density, they're really already connected. They and their higher self communicate with your higher self first. And then your higher self communicates back whether you get any in-person visitations or any communication at all, or what type and how it should begin. And usually it begins in dream work.
What about things like synchronicity, seeing number patterns, stuff like that?
Right, yeah. One of the interesting things about the Anshar is that that's how they communicate with us. They and other beings from the future even are here with us right now. There's a interesting time or interesting event. They are able to use, like the Anshar, their technology are these chairs that they sit in, and it focuses their consciousness and interacts with space-time, and it is like they're floating right there, almost like, an angel, in the room. I sat in the chairs and experienced the technology, and they will follow a family line for many, many generations, watching how they develop and the cycles that they go through. And they will communicate with people. They give them downloads. Many have been experiencing downloads lately. They let people know they're on the right path with synchronicities, kind of like dropping breadcrumbs.
Well, don't you think it's interesting how many times when you really do your homework that the great inventors who have made some of the most important breakthroughs in our technology say that they got their inventions in dreams?
Or downloads.
Yeah. So if it starts with dream contact, are there certain character qualities, are there certain practices that we could have here that would help us to be ready for the actual in-person, the really
Yes.
gee-whiz stuff?
Beings who are coming down and visiting people face-to-face during the 30s, 40s, and 50s. The consciousness level back then and even now, when these beings come and visit the average ego person, they begin to get a Christ complex. It happens over and over and over, and the most humble people would begin to, why are they coming to me? I must be special. What's so special about me? Then they go introspective in the wrong way. What they want is for us to go introspective in the right way, to deal with our personality distortions that we haven't dealt with yet. Those personality distortions are usually what stands in the way when the higher self-communication occurs between the other being and you. They're like, oh no, this person has a distortion towards this. If they have an in-person communication, then it's going to be detrimental to them.
So based on what Emery was saying about being angry or something, would that be classified as a personality distortion that would have impacted his communication with these beings in the OR?
It's more of a symptom of a personality distortion. Why is the person not in control, or why are they having agitation? What was their trigger? You got to trace all of that back through all of the painful, unpleasant genesis. You getting angry is just a symptom of the wider problem they want you to deal with.
So another thing that I'd like to put on the record here, because the format of Cosmic was only that I could ask you questions, I couldn't really share anything, is that in my telepathic contacts that really were very active between 1990, the end of 96 through 2000 is when I really was getting most of this stuff happening. And as I became more public, I became very concerned about like all the hate I was receiving on the internet and how it could cloud my mind and make the information tainted somehow, because I didn't have that sort of childlike jubilation and glee about my life anymore. And so I was afraid of doing the work anymore, because if you have that kind of negative influence in your head when you're doing it, it can really get the wrong results. So,
or you can be deceived by what you think is a positive being that you're in contact with even.
Right. So when people start to have a sense of being a savior, this kind of thing, I equate that to the starstruck thing that you get when you meet a rock star. Because part of it is, oh my God, I'm so special. Oh my God, I'm backstage. I'm meeting one of the gods of our society. This guy's on TV. I've seen him so many times. I love his music, you know. And that's what you don't want. And in the same sense, like, I don't even talk about the fact that I had these contacts for the most part, because I don't want to try to steer people into seeing me as being different. But it appears now that I'm at a point where I'm being asked in my dreams very concisely and consistently that I need to talk about this. So I want to point out something, a very interesting parallel between all three of us and what we've had happen to us. You got to understand, when I was doing these readings, that I was getting pages and pages of direct speaking documentation. Speaking ultimately in a pretty plain way. Like in the beginning it was very cryptic, but it got a lot more easy to understand as time went on. But they never let up on me. They never stopped criticizing me about being too afraid. They didn't like my diet. They wanted me to eat a whole different way. All this kind of stuff happened. And I mean,
yeah, be careful what you wish for.
Look at Corey Good's body now compared to where he was when we started the show. It's unbelievable. So I'm seeing this parallelism here, and when we're looking at this solar flash that's coming our way, what were you told, Corey, about what we need to do to be prepared for this event? What did they instruct people about how to be ready for this thing?
Well, it went back to the Blue Avian message to, process your karma, to forgive yourself, forgive others, because it all comes down to the fact that all energy has mass. And when you have these traumas or emotional scars, they have mass. And they act as anchors that hold you to third density. This cosmic consciousness that's coming through, that's causing us to judge ourselves and to be judged, we need to be at a point to where they pass through us. There's no electrical resistance. We're conductors. If we have not dealt with these things, then we're not going to conduct the energy. It's not going to pass through us. It's going to burn up the wire.
Well, again, this is a very fascinating real-time discovery, because in all these years of readings, of which I have, many hundreds of pages total of all the things that were said, which I was supposed to be sharing with people, and now I'm going to finally start doing it, but I had suppressed it for a long time, basically because I wanted to build credibility in the scientific arena, because people really don't like channeling unless they're open to it. They think, oh my God, you just made all this stuff up. And oh, those time travel stories, you just made all that stuff up. Well, I have witnesses. I have people. I did a business with these readings from 98 to 2005. I had 500 clients. I had some amazing things happen. If the client was ready for it, certain people would get stuff like, for example, there was one lady where the beings described the lyrics. They quoted from her poems and songs, and I didn't even know that she wrote songs. They literally quoted the poems and then explained to her what the subconscious reasons were for why she wrote them. And so she was literally sobbing on the phone, and one of the things I had to train myself to do is to not get out of trance when people totally lose it on the phone, to stay in this robotic consciousness, and I mean, the voice could get fast. Like, if I really got into it, it would be coming out faster than I could possibly talk normally, and just perfect transcribing. If you transcribe it, it's flawless sentence structure. It's very normal for people to have that kind of an experience. Emery, getting back to you for a minute now. No, don't laugh. Come on now. I'm trying to give everybody a chance. It's interesting that you had reported that it was called a spiritual mass because over and over again, we never talked about this, the beings reported karma as a gravitational well on your timeline. And what they also said was the arrow of time points in the direction you're facing, so most people are stuck in a circuit. They're like in a loop where they think that they're going forward into the future, but they're really going through a circle, and there's this gravity well on the circle that keeps pulling them back. And until you clear that karma, you're basically repeating the same lessons in life over and over again. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
So, Emery, based on your experience of seeing not only your own in-person contact with ETs and telepathic experiences, but actually facilitating this for others, how does the karma stand in the way of somebody actually getting these contacts?
I believe that a lot of the emotional stress we carry is programmed from something else. So there is no good or bad that you did. It's a program. You look at that and you judge yourself. And what I've learned from them is that doesn't exist unless you manifested it. So that leads me to the observation that, we're all karmatically responsible because we're actually all connected. We're all one. It's all of our responsibility. I am David Wilcock.
Well, then why are you over there?
I'm bilocating. I'll teach you that later.
Fair enough.
But we all share the same field, same energy, in a different way. Of course, we all look different and are different races and gender. But for the most part, what I learned from them is that that's just a program when you think or you're upset or whatever. And we've been installed with this. There's many planets out there that started the same time we did. But they're completely hundreds of thousands of years more advanced than us because they didn't have this crazy 300 major corporation cabal killing Tesla and Stubblefield so we can get these anti-gravitic and zero-point energy devices out.
Yeah, exactly. Well, just one thing that you said that I want to make sure isn't misunderstood.
I'm not really you.
No, it wasn't that. That I understand.
Just maybe 2%.
We're looking at the idea of the ultimate arbiter of truth, the ultimate arbiter of good or bad, right? And you say there is no good or bad, but really, let's just be more clear. And I want to see if you agree with me, because this is what's in the Law of One. It's what my readings would also teach people. There's only one of us here. You kind of just said that about me.
100%.
Right? So because of this, the Law of One is really, really big on what they call the first distortion of the Law of One. You see this term over and over again. You're like, what the hell is first distortion? They use it like hundreds of times. And then it explains the first distortion is free will. The universe will allow you to pick up a gun and shoot somebody and kill them. That might very well be allowed, but then you will have to come back in another lifetime, or maybe within that lifetime, and have somebody do the same thing to you. And because that other person is you and there's only one of us here, there is an absolute karmic balance for actions that infringe on free will. So obviously, the goal is for us to learn how to always be positive and forgiving and supportive to one another so that we're not creating these needless experiences that are going to have to come back into our own life and give us these very painful things. Would you agree with that, Emery?
Yeah, I do. I mean, we're all at a different level of education in this karmatic spiritual value of astral state. Some in preschool, some are already graduated. But the thing is, don't forget, that's a part of you. My little preschool friend here is part of me.
Oh,
so I got to catch up. And then, my PhD here is also at a different level. So I got to balance these two guys.
Well, see, he's the guy that's got to write the check at the end of this thing. I think that's why that happened.
They're inside. So we're only as fast as our slowest runner, we say in the military when we're all running. So we have to do that. So we have to pick each other up. We have to take everyone together on this because we're all one. Does that answer it?
Yeah, very good, very good. Give him a big round of applause. So we are now in the final 15-minute window before we're going to do this meditation. And this is a very important part of what we're here for. And I want to hand it back to Corey now. Since he's relieved himself in the bathroom, he's probably going to be ready for everything he needs to do here.
I was counting on that intermission.
Well, you don't get one with me. It just goes.
It's okay. I have a thing back here, a bucket.
Yeah.
That's what I've been using. Gotta improvise.
Let's talk. I mean, I could do the science and all this stuff, and maybe I'll insert some of that as we go. But could you explain, Corey, why, when you're doing an event called Dimensions of Disclosure, and we're talking about wanting to have full disclosure and wanting to get this information out to the public, why would we need to focus on something like a group meditation? What's the underlying agenda that these beings told you about why that matters?
Well, it goes back to we are all one, but this illusion of separation, the only way that we can, I guess, come together is through the mass consciousness. The more we learn about the power of our mass consciousness, the co-creative ability of our mass consciousness, and understand that, yes, at one point, some being wanted to understand what, wanted to have this experience, and it divided into all of these individual beings. So I just got off again.
Can you feel your underpants?
I tell you what, I was so excited about having the event here because I wasn't going to have to drive or travel, but we ended up traveling down to Dallas because my stepdad being ill, and we drove back right before this, so we're all pretty exhausted, so my brain is shutting off a little bit.
Why meditation?
Okay, meditation. This is our opportunity to get together and focus on one intent for our co-creative consciousness to manifest. And I said this earlier today, the biggest trick that the cabal pulled over us was taking away our knowledge of our co-creative abilities, and then they started to manipulate it through media and other control systems, and they trick us into using our co-creative abilities to manifest a negative reality. And this is us taking back that power and using our magic to manifest a positive reality.
Somebody from the audience, Corey, came up to me after my talk yesterday, or no, it was actually at the dinner. It was at the dinner. And he brought up something from way back when we first started doing Cosmic that I'd forgotten about. And it was something that Tompkins touched on as well. You were told that these so-called Draco reptilians that are here on Earth had created some kind of mind control mass system that affects how everybody's mind and heart and spirit is working. And you were also told that at some point that system would break. So could you go into that a little bit about that story of what is this mind control system and what are we expecting is going to happen when it breaks?
Yes, it is a mixture of technology as well as the way the Earth, the electricity travels through the Earth through the ley lines. They disturbed the natural ley lines and the way energy travels through the Earth naturally. They diverted it. And at the same time, and that the way that the energy was passing through the Earth before allowed us to be more psychically in tuned and communicating with each other, and also have more access to higher self type, I guess, technology. They wanted to remove that from our consciousness. They didn't want us to know about it. So that affecting the grids had that effect on us. And then they also had added to that technology that was in space and also on Earth, connecting through those grid lines that affect our consciousness and keep us asleep. And from what I've been told, since the spheres came and the energies have increased, the technology doesn't hardly work. They've got it turned up all the way just to have a small effect on the consciousness of humanity right now.
And Emery, that sounds a lot like what you were just saying, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm more scientific. I think about like scalar infotmetry because of the devices I was, introduced to, and this might be a reverse engineering of what they have done, because the science he's talking about is real. It's real science, and it makes sense. I don't know about the whole Draco thing, but I agree with what you're saying because it's already happened and it's happening. And I really believe that this meditation and things that we do cohesively with a good collective really breaks that field. Because remember, it's a field of energy. We're all energy.
Yeah, I think also what has had an effect is that there are a lot of star seeds that their mission is to come back and reactivate these grids. And even people in this room have been going to sacred sites and trying to reactivate them and set that circuit back up to work properly again through the ley lines.
There is no try.
Only do.
Slow down there, Turbo.
Now, you were told, though, Corey, that at some point there would be a decisive breakdown of that system from even being able to do what it was doing, that it would just cease to work, and that there would be some kind of a sudden effect, sudden change in people's consciousness. Could you describe that?
Yes, it's multi-layered. It's going to be like coming off of a drug all of a sudden for everyone. It's been affecting our consciousness. All of a sudden, it's like you begin to hear things more clearly. You receive a signal more clearly. It's affected our ability to receive this information, and in the beginning, it's going to be overload. So, it's going to be a major headache in the beginning.
Now, you had also described how in the secret space program they had these craft. They fly people out into this interstellar cloud that our solar system is drifting into, and two different types of things would happen depending on who you are. Could you go through that again real quick?
Well, what they did is they flew out to these gas clouds, plural. There were numbers of them that the Earth passes through, then goes through a clear patch, and then passes through, different densities of these clouds. But they went out to these clouds, nebulous clouds, which are just energy, and they measured it. And while they were out there, they noticed that it was having a psychological effect on the crew. Well, they documented it, and how scientists, they have to repeat it. So when I was in the programs, they would actually take our own people and, people like doing data entry. Yeah, they do data entry on ships. Yeah. They would put them in a room, several of them, to do data entry, and if they've psychologically profiled them all, they know everything about them. And they would put them in and watch them. And these people are working. They have no idea what's going on, and then they begin to pipe in this energy. And the people that were very positive, moral, would become blissed out and, almost high. And the people that were of a negative polarity would do the opposite, become extremely agitated and unpleasant.
So, Emery, do you think this is part of the reason why, when you do these CE5s, that some people get so triggered that they actually become angry and they just storm off?
Yeah, they have that kind of program there that they can't accept that. It's happened millions of times where craft would come in, fly in, and you've heard about this in history where ships would go to a different civilization, and the natives never saw a ship, but they see people walking on the water, you know, because your brain can't assimilate that, because what Corey said, we're not turned on yet, but we're getting turned on, and we are ascending, and we are getting this every day. So think of it as a good way, but it is true. This does happen with a lot of the majority of people who don't want to really accept this yet, which is okay. They're just at a different level, and they just need to be activated. And we're getting activated with Stardust all day long, so you guys know. And we're doing it with each other. We're helping each other with, using sound and meditating and getting together like this. It's an activation. Every time you go into the stars at night, we do a CE5, your DNA has changed. We've measured it. Astronauts, twin astronauts. One goes up, one stays here. Twins, one's an astronaut, one's not, and stays on the land. This is all public information. You've probably heard this. Their DNA is now changed. Now, why is his DNA changed? Just because he's 85,000 feet up there floating around, and he gets back and his DNA is completely different. Something's going on. There's an activation of some sorts that are happening through the earth, through the energetic fields, and of course, interdimensionally.
Well, the Chinese did research where they took seeds for like tomatoes and zucchini and stuff, flew them up into space, they grow the vegetables back here on Earth, and they're like from Findhorn, like super large, crazy, extra growth. And that's been documented again. So yeah, there's a lot of this kind of stuff.
Oh, I can talk about plants all day. You know that.
So I want both of you, before we start this, and Emery, will start with you since you're already standing. You know, I don't want to inconvenience you too much.
Sorry, I got to move a little bit. Got to keep the energy going with everyone here, right?
So, could you tell us real quickly, since we all agree that we're going through a quantum leap in human evolution, I just want to get a nice short, because we got like 3 minutes before we're going to start this thing. What do you, based on the ETs you've already seen, what do you think we will experience if all of us are fortunate enough to have done our homework to be ready for this quantum leap in human evolution? What will we be like? What will our minds be like? What will our lives be like as we go through this?
Yeah, we're going to live a lot longer. We're going to be able to do a lot of self-sustainability stuff where we're not using gas, coal, and oil. We're going to be able to change our genetics and DNA. We're going to be able to get rid of cancers and tumors and diabetes and all this stuff. And it's going to happen pretty quick within the next, 3 to 5 years, I believe. I'm just saying, I haven't been wrong yet.
Corey, again, we have this ascension message that's been coming in very strongly. It was the main theme of all my contacts all those years. It's the main theme in the Law of One. It appears that the beings that did the Law of One contacted you to bring this message to the next level. So what do you see happening? And maybe we could talk about some of what the Anshar told you and what their society is like. What do you see happening as we go into this new stage of evolution? What will we be like?
We're going to be connected in a way that we're unprepared for, that this ascension is a consciousness ascension, that our consciousness is going to expand and blend in a way that we're going to approach all of our problems from a more cohesive way, like, 7 billion processors working on a problem in tandem instead of working on all their own individual issues to process. So it's going to be a quantum leap in the way we approach each other and our problems.
Very good.